Any lawyer that does not grill their client does their client a disservice. And one thing that has become abundantly clear in the era in which we live is the media is doing that disservice to all of us. Viva Frei, Montreal litigator turned YouTuber, and last night I did a live stream just to get some thoughts out of my head that were circling around for a little bit too long. I think I might have been as angry or as frustrated as you might ever expect to see me in a live stream or in any video. And I say it tongue-in-cheek because I wasn't really angry, but I certainly was frustrated and I certainly was concerned with what I see going on in the world today. And if you want to see what angry, frustrated Viva looks like, I'll link the live stream right here. Give it a watch if you have 1 hour, 17 minutes, and 45 seconds.
Fractal wrongness. And it's the idea that every decision you make is wrong. And not wrong in the sense like deliberately wrong, as in even by the odds, your decisions could not be that wrong even if you flipped a coin. And so there has to be something in the judgment that causes your decisions to be consistently wrong along more probabilities than just random wrongness. That's the thing. It's like you have random wrongness and you have fractal wrongness. Random wrongness is okay. You make your mistakes. A broken clock is right twice a day. Fractal wrongness is like the clock that loses a second every day, and so it's always wrong. Fractal wrongness has been in my head a lot these days, and a lot over the last month.
I, like the rest of us, am living through this My Sharona Cyrus era, and sometimes when I watch the news, I have questions, and I ask myself, why on earth are the reporters not asking these simple questions? Now, I'm not saying that we are currently living in a police state, but I
can't really think of another way to end that sentence.
Now, I have been deliberately going out of my way not to do more videos than absolutely necessary on the Voldemort illness. You know what? I don't like that name anymore. We're going to call it the My Sharona Cyrus.
I actually like the way that sounds.
My Sharona Cyrus. I watch the politicians speak, I listen to the questions the reporters are asking, and I am immediately brought back to one of the principles of Parkinson's law on triviality. If you have been around my channel for any period of time, you might know that I refer to something called Parkinson's law from time to time. And there are two Parkinson's law that I love in particular. The first of which is the time it takes to accomplish a task will expand to fit the time you have to accomplish that task. And it's such a beautiful principle of economics and human nature. If you have 2 hours to do something, you will take 2 hours to do something. If you have 30 minutes to do it, you are going to do it in 30 minutes. It's one of the reasons why successful people are successful. It's not because they have more time, it's just that they're more efficient with their time. And there is a reason why they say if you want something done, give it to a busy person. But there is a lesser known Parkinson's law called the Parkinson's law on triviality, which is equally beautiful in its economic and human nature application. Parkinson's law of triviality is C. Northcote Parkinson's 1957 argument that members of an organization give disproportionate weight to trivial issues. Parkinson provides the example of a fictional committee whose job was to approve the plans for a nuclear power plant, spending the majority of its time on discussions about relatively minor but easy to grasp issues, such as what materials to use for the staff bike shed, while neglecting the proposed design of the plant itself, which is far more important and a far more difficult and complex task. Another illustration of Parkinson's law on triviality would be if you're negotiating a shareholder agreement for a number of shareholders. You could be sitting around a boardroom table with multiple lawyers and multiple clients arguing for an hour on what the monetary threshold should be for decisions that should require the unanimity of shareholders, while spending little to no time discussing the provisions as to how to evaluate the value of the shares if there is a death of a shareholder and you need to evaluate those shares. It is easy for everyone to have an opinion and chime in on issues that are easy to understand, less so when they're complex issues. And this is exactly how I feel watching the media deal with and ask questions to politicians who are talking about how to respond to the My Sharona Cyrus. They literally spend inordinate amounts of time asking questions on social distancing measures, things which are easy to understand, without delving into the more complex issues such as the projections themselves. And the perfect illustration of this is a report I saw yesterday on the projections coming out of Ontario, Canada.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Ontario Premier Doug Ford warned it would be a wake-up call, and today the province's public health experts laid out in stark terms what their disease models project. These are projections, not certainties, and there are best and worst case scenarios. Here's the worst.
Over the full course of this pandemic, which may last for 18 months or even 2 years, because we may have a smaller secondary or tertiary wave. Had we done nothing, Ontario may have suffered 100,000 deaths.
100,000 deaths.
Here you have an expert coming out issuing stark projections and figures that would shock anybody. Projections that are undoubtedly based on complex mathematical formulas, models, etc., etc. Little to no time spent delving into these projections. Then you have Mayor Ford coming out and saying these are the measures we have to implement, and the media running with these social distancing measures.
The decisions we all make now will affect how many people die, and more restrictions are coming.
Over 1,600 people could be dead by the end of April.
And I watch the expert, I listen to what the expert is saying, I think about it, and I say, I have questions, and it's driving me nuts that nobody is asking them. Had we done nothing, Ontario may have suffered over 100,000 deaths over the life of this illness. The life of the illness could be 18 to 24 months, and that is objectively a shocking number. Now, it's a shocking number, and when I listen to this, the first question I have is, what is the baseline measurement? The way the expert is framing it sounds like there would be no deaths over the next 18 to 24 months, and if we do nothing as relates to this illness, there will be 100,000 deaths attributed solely to this illness. The way the expert is framing it sounds like in the absence of this coronavirus, nobody would die over the next 18 to 24 months. So I'm watching this and I'm listening to it very astutely and I'm thinking, what is the base measurement? How many people would otherwise die over the next 18 to 24 months, even in the absence of the coronavirus? Why is nobody asking that? Why is nobody mentioning that? Why is that essential piece of information absolutely lacking from all discussion on the projections? And because nobody in the media is asking the question, I have to go do my own research. So I went to the Statistics Canada website just to see over the last few years how many people die annually in Ontario. And if we average out the last 6 years, it seems that roughly 100,000 people die annually in Ontario, which actually means that even in the absence of the existence of the coronavirus, this expert could come out and say, if we do nothing, 200,000 people are going to die over the next 18 to 24 months in Ontario. Now, I fully appreciate that these are in fact two different sets of people. The stats coming off the Statistics Canada website includes all people who die every year in Ontario. And here's the more complex question that actually comes into play if we are to properly understand the models and the projections from this expert. We do in fact have two categories of people here. You have one category of people that will die in a year from all causes, and you have one category of people that might die from the coronavirus. But although we have two categories of people, there will necessarily be some overlapping, and in order for us to appreciate the projections, we need to know the degree to that overlap. For the sake of simplicity, let's just refer to the category of people that would die in any given year as Class A. And let's refer to the class of people that might die as a result of the coronavirus if nobody does anything as Class C. To issue these very stark and shocking projections on the basis that there will be no overlap between Group A and Group C is misleading. It's misleading and it does a disservice to everybody's appreciation and understanding of the situation. And it is unacceptable that reporters are not asking these questions. It's unacceptable that the experts are not providing these details. When it comes to the media, there's something we refer to as fear porn. We all know the old expression, if it bleeds, it leads, so the media likes to take the most shocking sensationalist spin on things in order to get people to click. And so when the media unquestionably comes out with headlines that if we do nothing, 100,000 people are going to die from the coronavirus over the next 18 to 24 months, they fail to mention that over the next 24 months, 200,000 people are going to die regardless. The media runs with the shocking but easy to understand headline and omits the details because they're too complex for them to understand. And if you've been watching my channel for any period of time, you also know that I say a good lawyer has to grill their client as hard as they would grill the opposing party. Why? Not to give their client a hard time, but just to make sure that they understand their client's file. When it comes to the practice of law, it's very easy to identify a lawyer who doesn't fully or truly understand their client's file. It's very easy to identify a lawyer who doesn't fully or truly understand their client's business. And so when I say that a good lawyer has to grill their own client with the vigor with which they would grill the opposing party, it's not only to make sure that their client understands their case, it's to make sure that they understand their client's case. And when it comes to the way the media is covering the coronavirus pandemic, what seems abundantly clear is that the media doesn't even understand it enough to know what questions to ask. And in so doing, they are failing in their jobs and they are failing everybody else out there. And it's no different for the politicians. If the politicians don't ask the right questions, they are not going to have complete information to determine policy. And it is totally analogous to a lawyer cross-examining an expert. If the lawyer doesn't have a sufficient understanding of the details of the file, they are not going to be able to effectively cross-examine an expert witness. They will not know what questions to ask, they will not know what follow-up questions to ask, and their cross-examination of an expert whom they are incapable of examining is going to be fruitless. And this is the way I feel watching the media ask politicians questions and watching the way politicians interact with the experts. Our political leaders are in the midst of making massive, sweeping, highly important policy decisions. And I am not convinced that they are doing it with an adequate understanding of highly complex issues. Now, I may be wrong, but when I see them not asking certain questions that I would ask, it causes me concern. And when I see certain experts saying that wearing a face mask might actually cause more harm than good, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to want to question that. There is no doubt in my mind that social distancing will have an impact on the spread of the myshirona-virus. It is not a question of defying authority just for the sake of it. It's a question of making sure that our policymakers have an understanding of the situation to make the best decisions possible. Throwing out terrifying headlines to the effect that 100,000 people might die over the next 18 to 24 months if we do nothing. People might view that a little differently with a little asterisk to the effect that 200,000 people will die over the next 2 years regardless. And then the highly meaningful question would be, what is the overlap between not doing anything for the myshirona-virus and what would otherwise be the case in the ordinary year? Alright, I think I've made my point and brought the analogy back to law and whatever. If you like my channel and you like my content, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and drop a comment in the comment section below. It feeds the algorithm. Support links are in the pinned comment if you are so inclined, but above all else, take care of yourselves, look after your neighbors, see that everyone in the community is doing fine during this hard period of time. And now you know your vlog. Peace out.